Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Richard, and we're back after a week of hockey. As we've talked about, we're doing the show weekly, as we hope, throughout the season. And the Ducks had their homestand that we're going to cover. They played 3 games. They won 2 out of 3. And then they went on the road and faced our favorite team in Nashville. And what a disaster that was. And we'll analyze that game as well. And we have plenty of other topics to get to. Nick Ritchie has been a big one lately. He's been taking some quote-unquote stupid penalties. We talked about some trade rumors as well involving him and maybe some other players that have popped up around the league. We've got some poll questions to cover as well. We're going to cover the San Diego Gulls, and a familiar face has returned to the Ducks and Luca Sbisa, so we're going to talk about him and also some league news in addition to that as we break it all down to you in the Ducks action this last week. So, Eddie, the Ducks went home. They played 3 games. They won 2 out of 3. We'll kind of go through the sequence of events, but we'll also have some topics we'll throw in between some of these. But we'll start off with the Buffalo game. The Ducks in this one got down early 2-0, and things didn't look too good for them. It looked like Max Jones was going to get his first goal. Ended up being challenged. It was offsides. The Ducks still got another goal in the first period to break it to 2-1. And then they went on and scored 4 more, and they ended up winning this game 5-2. A couple things here in this game, Eddie. I mean, the comeback kids, I guess, with the Ducks getting down early. We saw that come back. And we saw the Ducks get pretty physical in this game. And, finally the power play got a goal. I mean, it's just, still the only one of the season, but, they did get one with the man advantage. So, and they played a tough Buffalo team. This team, at this point in time, did not have a regulation loss. So it was a good contest. I thought this one was probably one of the most entertaining games throughout the season at Honda Center, Eddie. What were your thoughts on the Ducks coming back and winning this one?
I think you and all the listeners already know my feelings toward this game and how much I loved it. This game was freaking awesome. It sucks that I wasn't feeling that well. I couldn't go there physically to watch it. I really wish I would have sucked it up, drank some more NyQuil, and went and watched this game. I loved it. And Buffalo thought they were going to cruise to an early win, going up 2-0. The Ducks, nope, they had something other up their sleeves. They didn't stop. That tip-in goal by Henrique was just a thing of beauty. I think all the Ducks goals that were scored were just like outstanding, amazing goals. From Henrique's tip to Raquel just getting the goalie to bite and just sliding that puck right between them. Of course, Getzlaf's one-timing power play goal. Thank you for having the power play goal. And then people overlooked the Henrique's second goal, but the pass from Comtois was just a thing of beauty. I think that pass set up the reason that goal was made possible. And a lot of people really don't give passers or the assists that much credit that they deserve, but that pass was probably a little bit better than the goal. But I love this game. And Mike, I want to break down my favorite parts, and I'll just go ahead and start off with what happened, and we'll just talk about it from there because a lot happened. But it starts off with Rowney getting a big hit on Olofsson, if that's how you say it. I don't really care because he's Buffalo, not the Ducks. But it was a really good hit. It was unfortunate he got called for it because the Buffalo player kind of went flinched and went lower. It was a good clean hit in my perspective, and I liked it. And then everyone came to town. Then we saw one of our elite enforcer, Derek Grant, body slamming some guy. So maybe when he's done playing hockey, he has a career at the WWE, because that was one hell of a body slam.
Yeah, that part was nuts, man. I remember I posted the video when I was there of the body slam, and everybody was going crazy. The Ducks weren't backing down or having any of it in this game, and really none of these games. And they won 2 and they lost 2, and we'll break them all down individually. But the Ducks do have more of that swag back that we've talked about. We'll get to the frustration in Nashville, but in these 3 games at home, you've seen the physicality of the Ducks. You see them standing up for the team. They're fighting back. Like you said, Rowney had a good hit. They called the penalty, whatever. I really thought this game was entertaining. We saw Holzer going at it by the bench over there. All kinds of things unfolding in this game. I mean, the only real downside to this game for the Ducks was, again, they had a slow start, which we've harped on that. And they did take a lot of penalties. They had 7 penalties in this game. But the penalty kill, which has been stellar this season, killed off 6 of the 7. So a lot of just stuff going on, like you said. Goals everywhere. Henrique's been on fire. Raquel, like you talked about, scored. Silverberg as well has been doing well. That whole line has really been the Ducks' best line this season. And this was just a good win all the way around. The Ducks getting down early, coming back. Like we said, with the Jones goal being disallowed, they could have kind of folded, but no, they fought back. And they're just not taking, for lack of a better word, crap from anybody, Eddie.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I've said it before. If the Ducks play it this way, it's going to dictate games. Buffalo did not know how to respond to the Ducks. Once the Ducks got physical, Buffalo just kind of backed off, and they weren't making those crisp passes. Their shots were going wide. They seemed really intimidated by the Ducks. Of course, we're not going to back down. And when it came to it, when Raquel and Skinner went at it at the end of the period, and then breaking Holzer's stick, I've never seen Holzer that pissed off in my life. He must have a really emotional attachment to the sticks like I do. He got really upset. But I love seeing this fire from the Ducks, and Buffalo did not know how to respond. Even when Buffalo tried to get physical and go out and take runs at players, McCabe just found out the hard way that you can't really just run on a rookie like Comtois. Comtois MC hammered him, and you can't touch this, and spun right away, and McCabe ended up hitting the board a little too hard. Nothing was going right for Buffalo. It was all the Ducks. The Ducks swag, that grit. None of them were backing down, and they really put the brakes on Buffalo. They had no idea how to respond. I think if the Ducks played like this, I mean, there was too many penalties, and you can argue a few of them should not have been called. Ducks had a stellar penalty kill, killing off 6 of them out of the 7. This was an overall a great game by the Ducks, by a hot team right now. It's starting really hot, and I wish I could see the Ducks, like I said, go back to the Dirty Ducks. With the exception of one play, I think the Ducks handled themselves well, and this is the kind of hockey I want to see going forward. It's going to play into their success.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that you're talking about has really been a talk amongst a lot of fans has been Nick Ritchie. You saw after the whistle, he went after Saboka and basically just tackled him, over towards the slot, Buffalo's net. He ended up, getting a penalty for that, obviously. And then we find out the day after he gets fined $4,121.86. I know some of you are like, why don't they round it up? Don't ask me. I don't know. It just says it's the maximum allowable under the CBA. So I don't know how they come up with these amounts or whatever. But so that's been a big issue. And so, we had a poll question out there, Eddie, as far as what people thought about the fines and whatnot. If you want to share those results, and then we can kind of talk about Nick Ritchie and just kind of the thoughts, because there's a lot of people out there that aren't really happy with him, and then there's some other people that are like, they're still okay with him.
Oh yeah, we took a Twitter poll, and 61% of you said that Ritchie deserved the fine, 30% said he didn't deserve it, and 9% said you were unsure. And like I've talked about before, I love a good, hard, physical game. But I was one of the 61% that said, vote it yes. I think he deserved a fine. I get it. You were pissed off. You took an elbow. You took a cheap shot during the play. There's a time and place for things. You going after him when the play was dead, and it's just, you pretty much just accosted him. And it cost you a penalty. What if Buffalo would have scored, got momentum, and came back and beat the Ducks? You put your team in a predicament because you were pissed off because you couldn't take what you usually dish out. And those are the kind of plays I don't like. The play's over. If you want to fight them during the game, if you want to take a run at them during the game, do it. But come on, the whistle's blown. That's one of the golden rules. I mean, the whistle's blown. Stop. Just let it go. Get yourself in check. And especially with Nick Ritchie, he's one of those players that's been taking a lot of questionable penalties for over the last few seasons. And that one was a bad one to take. And luckily the Ducks were on fire in their penalty kill. But let's throw the what-if card, Mike. What if Buffalo came back and scored a goal during that penalty, and what if that got the momentum swing to their direction and they came back and beat the Ducks? Then everyone would be like, it's all Nick Ritchie's fault, and I bet you that 30% that said he didn't deserve to be fined would probably vote yes, he deserved to be fined if he cost the Ducks the game. I mean, sometimes your personal pissed offness can wait, bite your tongue, count to 5 or something, and go after him during the play and after a later time, but not during when the whistle's done and he's skating to the bench. And yeah, Hutton, threw some cheap shots at Ritchie, but I think any other goalie, including John Gibson, would have stood up for their team. And one thing you notice about that play, when Nick Ritchie went and tagged him, a few of the Ducks players saw what was happening, saw the goalie hitting Nick Ritchie, and it took them a few seconds to react. I don't know if they took it like, oh man, what's Ritchie doing? And we have to go and, he's our teammate, so we have to step up for him. But they weren't really quick to go get his back. I don't know, that's how I saw the play. But I don't know, what did you think about it, Mike?
Yeah, I think a couple things you touched on there. The play was over and the players were going towards the bench. So that might have been part of the reason. And then they looked over and were like, WTF, what's going on? So I think that might have been a little bit more of it. But I definitely think there could be some thought of like, hey, dude, like, what the F are you doing? And we'll talk about the Nashville game later because he does some stupid stuff there as well when we get through it. But yeah, that's definitely part of it. And a big key that you talked about is time and place. You're playing a game, someone takes a hit at you, you don't like it, you want to get that guy back or another guy back. I get it. It's a total human emotion. You're in the heat of the game. You're like, F this guy. He did this cheap shot or whatever. But you got to pick and choose when you're going to do that. If that means it's a period later or a couple shifts later, you got to figure it out. You can't just, the whistle's over, I'm going to go straight over to the guy and then just tackle him. It's an easy call for the ref, and I wasn't surprised that he got fined at all. I was just waiting for that news to come out, the post or the day following the game. And the other part of it too is we took a poll question about trading Ritchie, and I was kind of surprised. I don't know if it would have changed after the game against Nashville, but we had just over 60% said to trade him, and I honestly thought it was going to be higher. And we do have some trade rumors and things like that we'll get to later in the show. But for me, I'm surprised it's not 70-80% that people would want to trade Ritchie based upon the stuff he's doing right now. He's had some chances to score offensively, and he's had 1 goal on the season in 7 games, or now 8. But it's not. I don't know. He's just not performing, and he's doing things at the wrong time. He's getting frustrated, and just picking poor timing, really, Eddie. That's what you've talked about.
Oh, definitely. And I can understand the fans' frustrations, especially going back to that Boston game, seeing Pastrnak score 4 goals, and to think that we picked Nick Ritchie with the 10th overall pick and Pastrnak was picked for the 25th overall. Imagine if we had that guy at number 10 and how he could have been lighting up. And even I've seen fans argue about Dylan Larkin, too, who was picked at 15. 2 players that I think both of them are superstars and with their teams, and they could have helped the Ducks immensely. I think that's part of the frustration because we expected Nick Ritchie to perform as a top 10 overall pick, and he hasn't. And this season, he's getting a lot of chances, and he's played better this season minus the penalties. The chances aren't going his way, and he's just getting so frustrated. He's letting that dictate whatever it is that is going on in his mind. I'm probably with the fans that say to trade Nick Ritchie. We gave him enough time. It's obviously not working out for the Ducks. I think if we can trade him to a different team, he can catch, maybe he could find his stride and have a successful NHL career. Because the way it's going with the Ducks, it doesn't seem like it's going to pan out, and I think a change of scenery is going to help him. Look at James Neal over there in Edmonton. Everyone thought he was done, including myself. He was just playing poorly in Calgary, but he's, I guess, a new fire, a new flame lit. He's playing well with Edmonton. Boo, Edmonton, because they're them. I'll come back on Catella. But yeah, I think it's time already. We exhausted all the means. We have a new coach. I think it's not working out, and he needs to change his scenery and new people around him, and maybe he'll have more success.
Yeah, and we'll elaborate on that a little bit more later on. There's some rumors with some players out there that are maybe on the trading block, and the Ducks have been mentioned, and we'll talk about possibly him being involved in those as well. So we'll go into a little bit more depth on that. But back to this homestand, the Ducks rallied. They came back. They beat Buffalo. Then they had another hot team come to town, the Carolina Hurricanes. And in this game, the Ducks actually got out to a lead, and they actually got out to a substantial lead. They almost blew Carolina straight out of the building halfway through this game. They were up 4-0. As we talked about, Adam Henrique getting another goal. Troy Terry got his first on the season. Jakob Silfverberg getting his fourth of the season in this game. And, halfway through the game, the Ducks were just cruising. They also had Ryan Miller in net, which we'll talk about a little bit as well. And we saw, again, the Ducks with that swag and grit. We saw Manson get in a fight with Edmondson. Manson laying some big hits, too, on some of the Carolina players in this game. And this was another good test for the Ducks. They faced Mrazek in net, who had been undefeated at this point in time, and they booted him out of the game. And it was a good battle. I liked everything I saw for the Ducks. Kind of a low shot game, 24-20 in favor of the Hurricanes. But this was a nice change of pace, Eddie. The Ducks got out to a lead, and then they did give up a couple goals in the second period, but then they held on the third to win.
Yeah, the Hurricanes have been one of those teams that got off to a hot start. They had their best start in franchise history, and they're a hot team right now. Those bunch of jerks have been really playing some serious hockey and became what people are talking about, a legitimate contending team this season. So it's kind of interesting to come in this game, see, okay, how the Ducks are going to respond, if they're going to bring that same swag and grit they brought from Buffalo, and they did. They came out hard, they came out fast, they played great in the first half. They were just coming out of nowhere. Carolina had no idea what to do. They were like on their heels. It's just crazy. Troy Terry's tip-in goal, oh, what a thing of beauty. It's something like Joe Pavelski, like he's the king of tip-in goals, and Troy Terry looked like a seasoned veteran with that tip. Great goal. Manson's hit on Holla. That was a great, clean hockey hit. I know a bunch of people were complaining, mostly Hurricane fans. If you're a real hockey fan and you know this game, you can't argue that was a clean hit. There was no call on it. It was just a thing of beauty. Unfortunately, Holla left the game, did not return after that hit, and we saw Edmondson try to fight Manson during that play, but the refs, of course, prematurely went in there and broke him up like it's their middle school kids. But we all knew that Manson would have to answer the bell, and that's what I like to see in this game. I mean, that's what this game's about. If you're going to lay a big hit on one of their better players, you have to answer the bell. Just like if someone took a run at someone like Silfverberg or Raquel, I hope one of our Ducks players, and I'm pretty sure, 100% sure, one of them will go in there and get their back. This fight, from a fan's perspective on who won, 41% said Manson won, 17% said Edmondson won, and then 42% said it was a tie. I would vote with the 42% saying it was a tie. I mean, both of them are big boys. They know how to scrap. Both of them got their fair amount of hits in, but I didn't see anyone coming out as a clear winner, and I think it was a tie. And it was good to see Manson getting back to his man boom days and that gritty, hard physical play. And I hope that he brings that going forward. I think he's going to have more success because his best season came when he was playing that physical type of hockey.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that poll question we did was interesting. That most people thought it was a tie. There was still a big chunk that said Manson won. But I agree with you. I don't really think either one of those players won it hand down. I think in the beginning it looked like Manson was kind of winning, then it kind of looked like Edmondson was kind of winning, and then it kind of was even towards the very end, in my opinion. So I think the biggest thing, though, you and I have talked about with Manson is that in the last season he just kind of seemed to disappear. He wasn't as physical. He wasn't checking people. He wasn't fighting as much. And throughout this season, we've seen him go back to the old Josh Manson we know. He's standing up for his teammates, as you mentioned. In case someone gets picked on, he's been there. He's also delivered a hit. And when he's been, called upon, or called out, I guess you would say, on a certain play, he's there. So he's really earning that A this season as an alternate captain. And I like what he's doing. I like his play. I like his physicality. He's made a couple little bad turnovers here and there this season, but overall, you have to like the way he's been playing, the way he's got that grit back, and getting the Ducks back to what we talked about, being a team with some swag, a team that's fighting, a team that's in your face. You know, these were the things, I think, why the Ducks beat Buffalo and the Hurricanes. Both these teams weren't used to playing a physical type team in your face. And I think the Ducks used that to their advantage. The other part of this, too, that we talked about is that Miller was in net, and Miller played a great game. And I know we talked about this on previous podcasts, but Miller needs to play more games. And I'm not taking anything away from John Gibson. I'm not saying Gibson's bad. You know, don't get all mad at me or whatever. But you need to rest Gibson here or there. And that's my point. And you need to give Miller some reps. So I was happy to see him come in this game and play very well. I mean, yeah, he gave up a couple goals. Not a big deal. You know, one was on the power play. And then, the other one later on in the second period. But overall, he played a really solid game, stopping 22 of the 24 shots in this contest. And that's just one thing that we mentioned, is getting him some more game action in there so that Gibson can get some rest and whatnot. I don't know if you have any agree or disagree on that, Eddie. I know we both kind of talked about it at the beginning of the season, one way to make this team a little bit stronger. And a part of that, too, about keeping Gibson fresh is not just now, but we're talking about later in the season. If the Ducks are playing like this and they're battling out for a playoff spot, which I know it's early, but, and I don't want to use the playoff word. However, they're playing at a very, very good rate right now. A good chance that they can be in the playoffs. And you want your goal to be as fresh as you can down the stretch, Eddie.
Oh, yeah, I 110% agree with you. I don't really have to add anything about that. I do want Miller to have a few games. Gibson needs a few more nights off, especially after last season, all the shots he was faced. Especially having a few bad games here and there, or who knows, like some goalies are proud. I mean, goalies are a proud breed. They want to start, if they can, all 82 games, of course. That's their net, and they want that start. But a few games here and there could, get some things to heal. Like maybe he had a sore hip, something that, it's not really big. He's hurt, not injured. There's a difference. And then having that day off to have him recover and then get him refocused mentally. Him watching from the bench, he's motivated more. He's like, okay, I'm watching Miller. He did this wrong. He's doing this right. Oh, maybe I should try doing this. And he gets more ideas, and it can make him a better goaltender. But I 110% agree with you, what you said.
And, moving on, this homestand, the Ducks finished it out against Calgary, and they ended up dropping this game 2-1. They actually started out with a goal early in the second period by Silverberg, his fifth goal of the season. And things look good for the Ducks in this game. They did have 3 power plays. They didn't score, big shocker. But things look good until towards the end of the second period. Stone scores and it's 1-1. You go into the third period. Then Backlund scores almost halfway through the period, and Calgary's up 2-1. The Ducks had all kinds of chances in this game. Really, I thought in this contest that they would at least get another goal in that third period and force overtime, at least earn a point. They played, extremely well in this game. But who also played well, Eddie, was Cam Talbot. A lot of people I saw before the game, when they knew he was starting, they're like, oh, we own this guy and we're going to take him out. Well, that wasn't really the case. He only gave up 1 goal in 30 shots. And yeah, the Ducks also did miss out on some opportunities as well. There were some close ones in the final period. Ritchie and their Comtois as well. They had some chances where they either missed the net or Talbot did, get a piece of the shot or whatnot. So you have to give him credit. He played a good game. Though I thought overall between the two teams, I thought the Ducks played better. They won the faceoffs almost 60%, just under that. They didn't give up any penalties in this game. The Flames had more giveaways as well. I thought the Ducks as a team played well. They just ran into a hot goalie.
Oh yeah, especially in that third period. Nick Ritchie had a beautiful chance to tie it up. He shot too low, and Cam Talbot was owning the bottom of the net. And the Ducks, for some reason, they weren't able to lift that puck up And like you said, Cam Talbot, he was a first star for a reason. He played lights out. I thought the Ducks had this game, especially I was probably one of the ones thinking too, like, okay, it's Cam Talbot, and he's had that rocky start. The Ducks have, owned him. He has that, that mental thing from come back on Catella, like, oh, we got this. The Flames only won one game in the last God knows how many freaking seasons. Like, yeah, you can't win here. We got this. And Cam Talbot just totally saved them, and I think if he wasn't in net, the Ducks would have got that goal in the third period and at least forced overtime. It wasn't a bad game. It just the Ducks ran into a really hot goalie, and he was just on his game. A few things I did notice too. I want to touch on Gibson's save in the first period. I think one of the broadcasters called it. It gets clicking your heels, so I want to call it the Dorothy save. You click your heels and you want to go Kansas or whatever. I forgot what the Wizard of Oz thing is, but I noticed there was a few more turnovers that the Ducks were making, and they let the Calgary Flames get a lot of odd man rushes. And thankfully, Gibson, the number 3 star of the game, he saved their asses. But and the power play too. The power play is a problem this season, and we have to do something to fix it. The Ducks did not take a penalty this game. That's just really odd because the Ducks been getting a lot of penalties.
Rare.
Yeah. Clap on for the Ducks over there. I don't know how much they paid the refs that game, but hey, keep it coming. But you had 3 power plays, 1 in each period, and you failed to score. It's a trending pattern, and if they can work on their power play, they could be a dangerous team because a lot of teams are taking penalties against this team, but the Ducks aren't responding. And I think teams aren't afraid to take penalties against the Ducks. Like, okay, this team is weak on the power play, so we can afford to take a penalty. But I think I think it was a goalie battle, and unfortunately, Cam Talbot was the one that came up winning and took the better half of the Ducks. I did notice too, I want to say, it was Gibson's bobble legs night. I haven't really seen him up close. I'll probably see it soon. You posted that video, Mike. It looked pretty cool. I've never seen bobble legs, so that's pretty cool from the Ducks. And then there's some guy that looked exactly like Teemu Selanne. Wow, it's like his twin. No, but Teemu Selanne we had a Teemu Selanne sighting at the game. It's just unfortunate too he was at the game. Ducks didn't win, but it's always good to see Selanne still supporting the Ducks, and he's a fan favorite. And I've seen a lot of fans that game taking pictures and Selanne with a big smile, and I know I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it a million more times, and I really don't think you guys will get tired of hearing this, but he is the best damn athlete in all sports, period. He's the epitome of what professional athlete should be. I think, in my opinion, he's the greatest athlete in the world to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's always fan friendly. Every time you interact with him, he'll, stop and say hi, sign a jersey, sign a hockey card or whatnot. He's just fan friendly. That's just the way to look at it. And of course, he's, one of the most popular players. I should say retired players now. Obviously, it's been a couple seasons, but he's still super popular. And it was funny. He was actually sitting behind Phil Hewlett, a couple rows behind him. So I'm sitting opposite where I'm at, so I could see him over on that side. That was good to see. So he was down there, and he was cracking up when he was on the big screen. But yeah, usually when Teemu's in the building, the Ducks win, and they couldn't pull it out in this game, unfortunately. But again, going back to the whole swag and grit and all that, we saw that in this game. Lucic tried to follow up a shot, got in there in front of Gibson, and you saw basically the whole team get in front of Gibson and knock Lucic on his ass. And if you really didn't watch the video clip we posted, or maybe you missed the game or whatever, you really have to go back and watch it, because if you look, Gibson's really sneaky. He gets a little poke check in there that kind of assists Lucic down to the ground, if you know what I'm saying. So that was hilarious as well to see Gibson get a little action in there too, and a little feistiness. You also saw Getzlaf flatten Zarnik too in the middle of the game, and I was surprised Getzlaf didn't get a penalty. It looked like the ref pointed towards the penalty box, but I guess he didn't call one, so the Ducks got no penalties in this game, which was a surprise, like you said, Eddie. I don't remember the last time that has ever happened. But again, the Ducks did, lose this game, but we still see the grit in there. We still see the fight in there. We see them defending their goalie, defending their teammates. It's still all positives despite this loss, Eddie.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Lucic falling. I like his style of play, but it's Lucic, so he's not on your team. You have to hate him. But him even falling, he was slow falling. Like, bro, like you're slow at skating, you're so slow at falling. But Getzlaf knocking him on his the other dude on his ass. Oh my God! I watched that video over and over and over again, and I saw the ref point, and it looked like he was pointing toward the penalty box. I'm like, oh, you know what? 2 minutes, well worth it. But it was just, oh, Getzlaf. Getzlaf still has that physicality and that grit, and you can tell he has that fire and like a newborn fire and passion. Like he seems like he enjoys the game again. Last season he was just kind of bland. It didn't seem like he enjoyed it as much, but the last few games, especially this Calgary one, he leads by example. Like, his team's getting into scrum, and he gets in there. He doesn't back away. He's, this is my team. I'm gonna protect my teammates. And luckily, he probably deserved a penalty for that. But luckily, the refs, for some reason, got a big payday. Or I don't know what Honda Center was feeding the refs. Maybe they were just happy with the team's catering. But it worked out in the Ducks' advantage. Unfortunately, Ducks can pull out a win, but it wasn't to their lack of play. Like I said, it was just goaltending.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a goalie battle, and this was the first game the Ducks lost at home. They had been undefeated up to this point, but whatever, it's okay. They still won 2 out of 3, and they're still rolling at this point, still playing good and whatnot. Then they started their road trip, 4 games, Nashville, Dallas, Colorado, and Vegas. And, of course, we draw Nashville in this first game on the road. And, things didn't go so well for the Ducks. This was the Ducks' worst loss in terms of the score. They lost 6-1 to Nashville. Very, very frustrating game. The Ducks had chances early on, could not convert. Nashville was handed a 5-on-3 power play. I'll talk about that in a second. But they had that, and they converted early in the game. And then Colton Sissons gets out of the penalty box, and he scores. And they're up to, a 2-0 advantage in the first period. And then they dropped 2 more on the Ducks in the second period. The Ducks had a bad turnover, one of their power plays, and Ekholm gets a breakaway and scores. And just everything went wrong for the Ducks. They didn't play that bad of a game. If you didn't watch it and you saw 6-1, you'd think, oh, the Ducks sucked. They got blown out, which they did. But there was a lot of opportunities in this game for the Ducks, and they couldn't cash in. Even Troy Terry had a penalty shot. He couldn't convert on that. Like I said, the Ducks gave up a shorthanded goal in a power play. They had another one where they almost scored, and then, like I said, Sissons came out of the box and scored. Just a lot of things went wrong for the Ducks. The face-off circle, they dominated. They beat Nashville 2-1 in this one. They were really winning the shot battle until the third period when the Ducks kind of disappeared. They only had a couple shots in the final frame, and they got very frustrated. We'll talk about that as well, Eddie. But overall, this game, the score is not going to show it. You're going to sit there and go, the Ducks got blown out and they're terrible. But they weren't. They had fight in this game. They were going after Nashville. And again, they played Rinne, who is undefeated this season in regulation. And we have a lot of fan questions, too, about this game that we'll get to after we talk about some of this. But he was just on his game again, Eddie. He, for some reason... I can't stand that guy. Whenever the Ducks play him, he's just always on his game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Ducks haven't beat the Preds since it was 2015. I read the stat was. That's I think in regulation. It's been a while, and unfortunately for tonight, the Ducks couldn't get out a win. On a positive note, Ritchie was having a decent game. He had a few close chances in the beginning before taking his little ding dong penalty that he did. I think it just the Ducks got frustrated. A few bad calls didn't go the Ducks' way. The Ducks went down 2-0, and I think the Ducks were their own worst enemy and let that get to their head. It's just one of those games. Anyone that plays any sport, or just living life in general, sometimes things don't go your way. Sometimes you get all the red lights. Sometimes you don't get those lucky bounces. It wasn't your night, and it seemed the Ducks had that kind of life mentality and game mentality today. They didn't play bad at all. They had a lot of fight. Even one of their Nashville players was talking about how, they think they're up 4-0. He was saying oh no, the Ducks have played well. It's just I can't believe we're up, and they played. I think he said they played better than Nashville was. It just unfortunately a few bounces, and the Ducks just couldn't get things going. And they had some fire in the third period. Lead by example. Getzlaf finally broke the shutout thing, scored a goal, but then Nashville scores right back and it just puts the Ducks back in their place. I think the Ducks were the worst enemy today, and they kind of just let Nashville run with the game. And it's just one of those games. Every team's going to have them. It's an 82-game season. I'm sure the Ducks are going to have a really bad game like this, even though how well they play. But it's just one of those things that we have to just move on for, learn from, and do better next game.
Yeah, the one thing that was frustrating, I think, was the beginning of the game, because the Ducks had been called for a penalty, they killed it off, then they were called for another one, then Silverberg got called for one that was super iffy, and I can't stand that when a team gets a 5-on-3 and, one of those two penalties is, lack of a better word, questionable. I don't want to say anything inappropriate, but yeah, it was super questionable, that call on Silverberg. That really irritated me. And then for Nashville to score like immediately right after, it's like a double whammy. It's like, okay, we're down 5-on-3 because of this questionable call, and then they score. I mean, it just kind of takes the wind out of your sails. And then, like I said, you get your chances, but then you're not able to convert. You have a chance to get back in this game. You have Sissons get out of the penalty box. He springs and scores. You have Troy Terry. He gets hooked at the moment of truth, so they make the right call. They give him a penalty shot. He doesn't score. I mean, there was chances in this game for the Ducks to get back into it. They had plenty of power plays in the second period, and they couldn't score. And they had a shorthanded goal again. So, I mean, there were still opportunities in these first two periods for them to get back into it, at least make it, maybe not tied, but at least score some goals in there and be a little bit more competitive on the scoreboard. I think the other thing, too, was the tactics in this. They talked about it before the game on the pregame show. And, if you've watched Pecorine, he has a really good glove hand. He got beat by Getzlaf on that one, but that's because Getzlaf does this little deceptive move where he turns the puck and makes you think he's going one way and then shoots the other way. But the thing I didn't like in this game with the Ducks, Eddie, is they didn't take enough shots down in the corners or five-hole. They were taking a lot of shots that were ending up in the chest or, by his face or by his glove. You're going in Rene's wheelhouse. Anything waist up, he's extremely good at stopping. The Ducks should have tried some more chances down low. I'm not saying it would have changed the outcome of the game. I mean, obviously they lost by a lot. However, I think they would have gotten a couple more goals at it if they would have, read him a little bit better. I mean, this is a young team. A lot of these players haven't played some of these goalies as much as some of the other guys have. So that could be part of the factor, too, in this one. But that's just one thing I think that they could have done better, and it may not have won the game for them, but it might have changed the outcome a little bit, Eddie.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. I was talking to my buddy Richard during the game, and he mentioned Gibson's positioning too on that second goal. But they weren't really getting Rene to move laterally, side to side. It seems like the shots were going right up top in his comfort zone. And Rene he was making saves, but wasn't scrambling, and he just seemed calm, cool, and collective. He didn't really stress him out. And it seems a lot of the shots were just going straight right in the chest or just going perfectly into his glove or blocker side. But he's a good goalie. He struggled last season a few times, but for some reason, every time he plays the Ducks, he's just great. And with Getzlaf is so unpredictable with goalies because he's a pass-first kind of guy. And even as fans, as people have been watching Getzlaf from his rookie days, we don't even know what the hell Getzlaf's going to do. It's like, okay, Getzlaf has the puck. 99% of the time he's going to go look for a pass, but then when he shoots, it's like, whoa, Getzlaf's shot. It's like a surprise to everybody. I wish they would have put some more pressure on Pecorine right there and got him moving like laterally and making him scramble to make some saves and making him earn that, just that win. But it seemed like it was an easy game for Rene, and once those penalties started trickling down, the Ducks were their own worst enemies. And I think this was like the most appropriate game for our sponsor at Ref You Suck. I think this was the game that our sponsor Ref You Suck, it was most appropriate because the ref, honestly, they did suck tonight, and I think they weren't the determining factor to cause the actual loss of the Ducks, but they played a part in it.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about in the beginning, that 5-on-3. It really, it's just a double whammy. And I think that just got the Ducks off to the wrong foot, and they got a little frustrated. And then you give up that goal right after you had a power play, and you saw the frustration boil over. And, we asked for a lot of fan questions for the show, and, man, a lot of you sounded off about this game with Nashville. A lot of questions on that, some on some other topics, but we'll focus on some of this stuff. Some of them are more comments than questions, but we'll kind of go through some of them, Eddie, on Facebook. Pretty funny here. We had Doug said, why can't Nashville ever win a game without diving? Which we've seen that. Yeah, that's true. It happens, at least against the Ducks.
I think a new shirt idea, Mike. Nashville Dive?
Yeah. It used to be the Kings. Remember, we had that shirt in the past. We may have to make another one, which, by the way, we do have that Sharks choking shirt, which we just finally restocked. I know a lot of you are into that one. So you can go to tpnhockey.com and check out that shirt and all the other shirts. So Eddie with the plug right there. But yeah, we may have to look into a Nashville shirt as well. So I don't know if they do it against all the other teams, but whenever they play the Ducks, yes, they do seem to when there's an aggressive play by a Ducks player, they seem to fall down pretty easily. So I think that's one of their tactics, Eddie, when they play the Ducks. And then unfortunately, when the Ducks are over-aggressive, and then the refs will end up calling the penalty in their favor.
They do it against the Avalanche, too, because I watch all the Avalanche games, too. And when the Preds and the Avs play, same thing. The Preds seem to go down a little easier. They seem to cry a little bit more. I think it's just part of their little pattern of how they try to get games to go in their favor. So it must be something in their water over there.
Yeah, something with the catfish or something, those dirty catfish on ice. But, and then Connie brought up this question, why can't we win in Nashville? And you talked about the Ducks haven't won there since 2015 in the regular season. I think part of it is that. I think the Ducks do get over-aggressive and they get frustrated. And part of it, we talked about the shooting against Pekka Rinne. I mean, he always seems to, be up for those games against the Ducks. And special teams play, whether it's the refs calling, some questionable stuff, or the Ducks getting frustrated and taking some penalties, which we saw Nick Ritchie do that at the end of the game, and he got booted out of the game. By the way, if you missed it, which we'll talk about a little bit later in our trade segment. But that's some of the things I see with this team is the way they attack Pekka Rinne. Sometimes it's the way the refs make calls, and like you said. Certain teams, when they play other teams, they like to dive. And Nashville, for some reason, has been diving against the Ducks since I think the beginning of time. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, they should have their own dive team, Eddie. I get so frustrated when we play them. But they always do play the Ducks tough. And no Ryan Kessler, obviously, this season. So that kind of hurts Anaheim as well because, of course, he gets up for any game against Nashville and any game against the Kings. So not having him as well, I think, has been tough for the Ducks, at least this season. It's just the one game, obviously. But I don't know what your thoughts are why the Ducks are having trouble on the road against the Preds.
I just think it gets in their head. These players have that mentality. If you can go back and look at the Calgary Flames when they had trouble winning at Honda Center, that was a huge drought, and psychological things taking effect, and you have that I guess that complacent mentality and that kind of just cruise, okay, we haven't beat this team and since the 2015 regulation, we're going to lose them again, and it just gets to their head. Or one thing goes wrong, for example, like I mentioned before, the penalties, and it just kind of tips the dominoes from there. And if you lay a stand-up dominoes and you tip one, what happens to the rest of them? I think that's just the mentality the Ducks have. I think it's more of a mental block. I think once they finally get that win on the road against Nashville, or just that win against Nashville, they'll be different. I mean, last season was one of those rare things because last season the Ducks were just terrible. But I think, like I said, the Ducks are their own worst enemies when it comes to playing teams that they haven't beat. And they have a road trip coming up, too. And once we get past this Nashville game, we'll talk about that because it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, exactly. This is just the start of the road trip, and they've got Dallas, Colorado, and Vegas as well. And we'll like you said, we'll mention that in a little bit, but they're going to have to really regroup quickly. Well, I guess we'll shift gears a little bit here. Real quickly, I'll just tell you the sponsor for this week's show is Bar Down Breaks. You can check them out on bardownbreaks.com. They do basically where you can buy hockey cards by the team. So they have packs or boxes of hockey cards. You go to their site, and they will give you a team, whichever one you want to pick. If you want to pick the Ducks, you can get all the Ducks cards out of that pack, basically, instead of getting random packs of cards with each player from different teams. So they're also going to be at our watch party coming up this Sunday. We're having another one at El Ranchito in Orange against the Vegas Knights, and then they're going to do one of their pack breaks on that day. So check it out. Hopefully you can come to that watch party. With that, some other news that happened today. We're recording the show right after this Nashville game. Maybe a surprise to some of you. Luca Sbisa is back on the team, Eddie, after being gone for a little bit. The Ducks signed him. Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet mentioned that before the game. Interesting reactions from some of you out there. There's a lot of WTFs. Why do we bring him here? He's not that good, and yada, yada, yada. But it kind of goes into what's going on with the San Diego Gulls as well, Eddie. He has to clear waivers, which most likely should happen, and then he'll come to the Ducks. He was on a professional tryout with the Islanders, where he played for a handful of games last season. But, I mean, the reason why he's here is it's more of a depth move than anything, Eddie. This isn't a big signing, and we'll get to the trade rumors in a little bit. But the Gulls are having a rough time. They've lost all 4 of their games they played. They're getting outscored like crazy. I'm not saying Sbisa's going to come in there and save the day on defense, but they're looking for more depth at the blue line. And that's what this move's about, and it's a cheap move. Bring him in. There's not a lot to it. That's all I can really say. Maybe he comes up and beats out Holzer for that 7th defenseman role. We also forgot to mention that Brendan Gooley got off the IR. He hasn't played, but he should be back sometime on this road trip. But anyways, the Ducks are still looking for blue line depth, and that's why they brought him in. He's a familiar player, and he's also a guy that fits into the whole grit and swag thing that we've been talking about, Eddie. That's kind of his style of play. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and score. He's not a two-way defenseman and whatnot. He's just another guy that is going to add blue line depth.
Yeah, I was one of those like WTF moments, but then when I started thinking about it and really digested it, I was like, it's not a bad move. We didn't have to give up anything. We're not signing him to a big contract, throwing money his way, throwing no movement, no trade, and anything like that. It's just a simple signing, and I like it. He's going to go down to the Gulls. He most likely going to clear waivers. He's going to help them out on their defensive line, and like you said, hopefully gives competition to Holzer, and they can battle it out to who can have that number 7 spot on defense. And Sbisa is a physical player too. He has a lot of grit, and he has a lot to prove. He was with the tryout with the Islanders. Obviously, the Ducks scouts saw something they liked in him and prompt the signing. And I trust the Ducks scouts a lot. I have a lot of respect for them. They've been doing well drafting and finding those like diamond in the roughs are finding players that had that potential. If you want to rewind a little bit, we got Sbisa back at the 2009 NHL entry draft. He was traded along with Joffrey Lupul and 2009 and 2010 first-round picks from Philadelphia for Chris Pronger and Ryan Dingle. So we had Sbisa from that trade, and then on June 27, 2014, we traded Sbisa to the Vancouver Canucks with Nick Bonino, a first and third round pick in 2014 for Ryan Kessler and a third round pick in 2015. So he's back with the Ducks. I didn't mind him when he was with the Ducks. He was, like you said, he's not one of those players that are going to well and dazzle you with points. He's just going to go there. He's just going to play hockey, and he's going to fill in that defensive role. So I'm glad to have him back. It's we always said this before. It's an old thing, but it's a low risk, and this time it's a medium reward factor.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what it is. So he's going to be back. Like we said, he's got to clear waivers, which most likely will happen. And, the Gulls are having a really tough time this season. They've lost their first 4 games. They did announce that Carrick is going to be the team captain for this season. But, I'm not really that surprised, Eddie, about what's going on with the Gulls, because most of the players that would be playing down there are all been pulled up with the Ducks. I mean, you're talking about Jones, Steele, Terry, Comtois up. I mean, just all these guys are up there. You have Larson up there as well. I mean, it's just that's kind of what was expected. I thought I didn't think the Gulls were going to have that poor of a start of a season, but I just didn't really think they were going to play well, knowing that the Ducks had to use so many of those guys to backfill spots for this season.
Oh, yeah. And you forgot to mention, too, the Gulls have a brand new head coach. So they have to factor that in as well. It's still early in the season. The Ducks or the Gulls are still they still have a lot of room to go. They're just getting used to a system. They have a lot of their key players up with the Ducks. They only scored 6 goals in the 4 games they did play, and they're 0-4 thing, and they allowed 17 goals. So obviously they need some help back and then at the blue line. The Gulls do play back-to-back games against Ontario Reign coming up this Friday and Saturday. They play Friday in San Diego and then Saturday in Ontario. So if you guys are closer to the Ontario area, Ontario's having some like Oktoberfest kind of promotion, so it's pretty cool. So you can go taste some beer and go watch the Gulls. Hopefully a back-to-back win. But I'll settle for their first win coming up. Sherwood leads the team in points right now. He has 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points. He also did score the first goal for the Gulls this season. And if you guys want to keep tabs on the Gulls this season, I suggest you read the Gulls bi-weekly article by Thomas Harrington. He's our subject matter expert on prospects and on our rookie players. And he does a really great job at an analysis, and he really breaks things down. He works hard, so I suggest you check out his articles and follow him on Twitter. He's more than open to answering any questions you guys have too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas does a fantastic job. I mean, he's pretty much in charge of the prospects and anything with San Diego, and basically anything that's minor league stuff with the Ducks. AHL, anything. Swedish leagues, any European league, any league but the NHL. Like he covers everything else, which is awesome. And like you said, he does a really good job at it. He's doing a bi-weekly reports for the Gulls, covering those games. And when other news comes out, he'll write articles sometimes on the spot, last minute for me, which is really, really good. So check those out. And like you said, hopefully the Gulls can beat the Reign in these 2 games coming up. Hopefully both, not just one, this coming weekend. So with that, we'll kind of go into another part here. We'll talk about some trade stuff. I know some people asked before if there were some rumors about Ritchie being traded. We had one Twitter user ask us, we had at Hammy Whammy asked us, is it crazy to start considering trading Ritchie, Kasha, and Raquel? We want to get younger and build. These 3 have been disappointing in the past years. I guess Ritchie is the big one that we would say yes, obviously, based upon our comments on this show and probably other shows. Plus, we mentioned some of the stupid stuff he's been doing, obviously getting fined back in Buffalo. And then, of course, he did a similar type thing. I mean, it's more of a group of players there in Nashville, but he goes after another guy when the play is kind of over. So Ritchie would be one of them, yes. Kasha, I would say no. He does have some injury issues, we know that. But I would still keep Kasha, and I'd definitely keep Raquel. He's been playing very well with Silverberg and Henrique this season. So in terms of those 3, that's what I feel. What are your thoughts on those 3 players, Eddie? And then we'll talk about some other players on other teams that the Ducks may trade for.
Thank you for the question. Posting on Twitter, I think trading Raquel would be absolutely crazy. Raquel signed to a friendly cap hit, and he has so much potential. Yeah, he had a disappointing year last season. However, toward the end of the season, he was lighting it up, and he was, getting that fire back. And I think he can have a great season. And I think we haven't tapped into his potential yet. I think he can be, one of the top points producer for the Ducks, if not the top points producer. So I think that'd be crazy. With Kasha, that's kind of like I'm kind of yes and no, because he has a lot of potential. He's been playing great. He has a lot of speed. The injuries have been a factor, and we just don't know what we have for him yet. So it's going to be kind of a gamble. You want to put, your $93 on black or red kind of thing, and hopefully it pans out. Nick Ritchie, I'm over it. I'm trying to have an unbiased approach when it comes to Nick Ritchie. I don't like him personally. I've had an incident where I saw something personally where he told a young lady, a girl, when I was with the Ducks, she had holding a box in the elevator, and he told her that take the stairs because it's a player's elevator and the players are going to use the elevator. And then Cam Fowler told that young lady, hey, well, you know what? Look, she has a box, like, you know, she can come down. I just think he has an attitude problem, and I think he thinks he's better than he is. And it seems like he expects things just to come open and easy for him. And like I said, I try to not take that personal thing that I know about Nick Ritchie and my decisions on talking about him. And I point out the good things he does, but I mean, when it comes to Nick Ritchie, every day he's not traded, I'm like, what are you doing, Ducks? Trade him already. It's not going to work out. And you know, I love being proved wrong. You know, when I say things, I love it if I prove wrong. If Ritchie comes on Thursday and scores a hat trick and just starts, you know, being a top producer and living up to that 10th overall pick, then I'll gladly come back on the show and say, hey, you know what? I apologize for saying that about Nick Ritchie. I was wrong. I mean, maybe his character at that time, something I don't agree with. And I don't like him for that reason. But, hey, you know what? I was wrong on my analysis on his potential as a player. But I think the Ducks are crazy enough not to be trading Nick Ritchie at this point.
Yeah, I'm not going to beat the dead horse. But some of the players that have been mentioned out there that the Ducks have been connected to, not that these are done deals or that they're in the works or anything, but just some players that maybe the Ducks are looking to go for. One name that's been thrown out there is Taylor Hall, and another one's Eric Goodbranson. So those are two names. We also know, and I'll let you kind of go into this a little bit more, Eddie, because you did some more research on it than I did. But with Goodbranson, they're talking about Kasha being one of them that would go in there. Maybe Rowney's another player. Talking about the Ducks and Pittsburgh have kind of done some deals. The Taylor Hall thing, the Ducks and the Devils have kind of done some deals before, obviously. So those are a couple players that maybe the Ducks would look at. You know, Taylor Hall would be a left wing to add for some more offense, maybe be a player to provide more of a scoring punch. Though the Ducks have been scoring goals for the most part this season. Where Goodbranson would obviously be that right-hand defenseman that the Ducks would add to try and, bolster the blue line a little bit more. So what are your thoughts on both of these players, Eddie, and how, the Ducks may or may not try to acquire one or both?
Let's talk about Goodbranson first. Pierre LeBrun reported that teams could be coming to terms on that trade. He's a 6'5", approximately 220-pound right-shot defenseman, was drafted first round, third overall by the Florida Panthers. He's played in 472 career games with 16 goals, 48 assists, 64 points. He's had 554 blocks and 1,141 hits. This season, 5 games with the Penguins, he has 0 points, 1 block, and 11 hits. He does carry a $4 million cap hit until 2020, 2021. And like you mentioned too, Kasha, Rowney, and then also noted by LeBrun was an ex-Penguin player they can possibly be trying to get. Pittsburgh Penguins wants to bolster their bottom six. They have some injuries going on. They're still playing some great hockey, and they're still a cup contender in my opinion. And we do have history doing deals with the Penguins. I think the ex-Penguin, just speculating because it wasn't written in the report that I read, but I think it's going to be Sprong, if anything, to get back. I know the Penguins want to trade Jack Johnson, but his cap hit and his play is not really allowing them to do that. So them getting rid of this player, which they probably don't want to. They want to get rid of Jack Johnson first, but it looks like it's not going to happen unless the Penguins want to throw in something for a team that has the cap space to sweeten the deal to take that hit. I think that this thing would be good for the Ducks. We have a physical defensive defenseman. He could skate well. He has pretty good hands, makes some passes, and he's a smart hockey player. I think it can work out for the Ducks if they can make a trade. And if they don't give anything up of that much value, and especially take advantage of the Penguins, the cap situation, and taking that $4 million cap hit and sending one of the players mentioned, and then adding something sweet, adding a draft pick from the Penguins back, or maybe a prospect or another player back would be good for the Ducks.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think Goodbranson might be more likely, like you're talking about the Penguins cap situation. If you were to send, Carter Rowney over there, I wouldn't be too upset. I know if it's Kasha, you're all going to pull out your pitchforks and stab me to death if I suggest that kind of move. So I'm not even going to go there with that one. And like I said, I agree with you. With Kasha, it's kind of, hey, he can score and do stuff. Yeah, he's had some injuries. With him, I would still give more time and keep him on the team as opposed to Nick Ritchie. So maybe you send Ritchie to Pittsburgh. I don't know. As far as Taylor Hall goes, same thing. Send Ritchie over there and send a couple other players. I mean, whatever you'd have to do. I mean, the Ducks have plenty of cap space. There's no issue with that. The Ducks, have several million. Plus, like we've talked about, you have Eves and Kessler as well to fall back on for like another 7-8 million. I mean, they have plenty of money. That's not an issue. It's just a matter of what they would want to add or not to help this team. And I don't know if it's necessarily offense that they're looking at or not, but definitely the power play has an issue. And maybe if they go out and get a guy like Taylor Hall, maybe he can be on that power play and help improve that. Will they do it? I don't know. That one, I just don't see them doing as much. I see them more likely to trade with Pittsburgh, but who knows? I could be wrong. I just don't see any big move as far as a trade being made. It's something small, sure. And you already saw Luca Sbisa, right? Something small, WTF, right? But that's the kind of stuff that we've been seeing. So if one of those two is to go down, I would go with the Ducks making some kind of trade with Pittsburgh out of those two. And with that, I guess, Eddie, if you want, you can break down some of the league news here as we're about to wrap up the show.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'll break down league news. A KHL coach was fined approximately 4,700 American dollars for joking about setting a ref's car on fire. So I guess you can't joke about setting the ref's a car on fire. You can continue chanting, "Ref, you suck," but don't say, "I'm going to set your car on fire." Former Ducks player Jamie McGinn is on a professional tryout with the Charlotte Checkers of the AHL. If you guys haven't heard too, in Dallas there was a big tornado, and Taylor Sagan, my bad. He's listed a house that he was not living in for sale, and that house got completely destroyed from the tornado. And also Ben Bishop's home suffered damages where him and his family had to stay with Jamie Benn because of that. So I wish the people in Dallas nothing but the best, and hopefully the people that lost things can get it back and rebuild from there, because it's an unfortunate thing that happened over there. Brian Boyle signs with the Panthers. And also Minnesota, Jason Zucker called out his coach in a player-only meeting they had, but he called out the rest of the team has to be better and mentioned that Boudreau has to coach better. He later retracted his statement, saying he shouldn't have said that. I get it, it's pure emotion, but as Ducks fans know and Capitals fans know, I mean, sometimes you have to call out a coach, and Boudreau is a great regular season coach. He's not a playoff coach, and obviously with the roster that Minnesota has, they have some good moving parts. They should be better than what they're doing right now. So, I mean, was it right to call his coach like that? As far as that, I don't know. I know a lot of people are undecided, 50-50. Some fans are pissed off at him. Other fans are like, okay. But in my opinion, he's a player. He should have handled it a little more tactfully. So that's going to wrap up the league news for this week.
Yeah, I think the Boudreau situation is interesting. I think his seat might be heating up a little bit over there. But I'm with you too. If you're going to have some kind of, airing of dirty laundry or whatever you want to call it, I mean, you try to handle that stuff in the locker room. And I don't think saying something about the coach out publicly like that, it's really going to help the situation of what's going on over there. So be something to monitor and see how it all plays out. But with that, we'll be back again, like I said, another week. We're usually posting the shows every Tuesday or Wednesday. We hope you can make it to the watch party on Sunday. And don't forget to check out patreon.com/DucksNPucks. You can get a $200 gift card from Cool Hockey each month, or some Ducks tickets. We're giving away some every month. So thanks for the support. We'll be back in a week, and let's go Ducks.